Hit that follow. Hey, what up, fam? Welcome back to the Time Machine Diaries. I'm Cullen, your host. Now, close your eyes for a moment. It's 3200 BCE, and you're standing in Uruk, the first city in history. The smell of blood hangs heavy in the air. You see it pulling at the foot of a towering ziggurat. There, a priest grips a jagged blade with trembling hands. He presses it against the throat of a lamb. It's not his first or his last sacrifice for the day. The stone altar is already slick with blood. The lamb struggles, bleeding in panic. But the crowd watches in reverent silence. The priest mutters a prayer to Inanna, the goddess of war and love. He then drags the blade across the animal's neck. Blood gushes out, dripping down the steps of the ziggurat as the priest raises his hand to the sky. But this is only part of the brutality. Beyond the ziggurat, you hear the cries of workers, men and women hauling mud bricks under the blistering sun. Their hands raw, their backs bent. Some collapse from exhaustion. Their bodies left behind as others continue forward. This is Uruk, the first city ever built by human hands. A place of innovation, yes, but also a place where life and death intertwine in brutal cycles. The gods demand sacrifice. The people in charge demand labor. And the people, they're just trying to make it till tomorrow. But what drove humanity to build a city like this? To cluster together under the shadow of bloody altars, walled-off markets, and oppressive kings. And how did this brutal beginning set the stage for the cities we live in today? I'm Cullen, and this is the Time Machine Diaries. Today we're diving into Uruk, the birthplace of civilization. It's a story of blood and bricks, of power and progress, and of the sacrifices, both literal and metaphorical, that built our world. But here's the question. How the hell would anyone want to live like this? Why cluster together in a city that reeks of death and sweat, under kings who demand your blood and backbreaking labor? And today, we're gonna dig into Uruk, the first fucking city in history. It's gritty, grimy, and gory as hell. But it's also where everything we call civilization began. We're gonna peel back the bloody layers of Uruk. It's not just about the sacrifices or the mud brick walls. It's about power, control, and the price humanity has always paid to keep this fucked up experiment called civilization going. To get Uruk, you gotta rewind to a world where cities don't even fucking exist. For tens of thousands of years, humans were just wandering the damn wilderness, scraping by wherever they could find food and water. Then about 6,000 years ago, people in Mesopotamia, the land between the Tigris and the Euphrates rivers, said, fuck it, let's settle down. They planted crops, domesticated animals, and started building villages. But one village got way out of control. That was Uruk. By 3200 BCE, it had over 40,000 people crammed into it, making it the biggest fucking settlement on Earth. But let's be real, it wasn't some peaceful fucking paradise. This city was built on blood, sweat, and a whole lot of suffering. Yeah, don't think for a second this was about making life easier. Cities like Uruk weren't playgrounds, they were power grabs. Kings and priests wanted everyone close together so they could tax the shit out of them, make them work, and keep an eye on their every fucking move. It's not different from cities today, is it? Swap the priests and kings for billionaires and politicians, and it's the same fucking dynamic. Life in Uruk was brutal as shit. Farmers worked their asses off under the burning sun, using nothing but sticks and stone tools to plow the fields. Slaves dragged fucking heavy-ass stones to build massive walls. Craftsmen churned out tools and pottery to keep the city running. And all of it was for the kings and priests sitting at the top of the pile, acting like they were handpicked by the gods. They wanted your loyalty, your sweat, and yeah, your fucking blood too. Now, let's talk about the violence, because it wasn't just inside the city walls. Uruk was constantly under threat from rival tribes and cities that wanted its wealth, land, and its power. One morning, the horns of war rip through the air, and all hell breaks loose. Warriors covered in scraps of leather and hide charge toward the walls, screaming like they're already drunk on bloodlust. Inside the city, the defenders are scrambling. Archers line the walls, their bows creaking as they pull back strings that have probably snapped a dozen times before. The first wave of attackers gets shredded by arrows, their bodies collapsing into dust like fucking ragdolls. But the second wave doesn't stop. They're carrying these crude-ass battering rams, basically logs with a pointy end, and they start smashing it into the gates. The defenders pour burning pitch down from the walls. The screams, man, they don't sound human. Imagine hearing a grown man's flesh crackle as he burns alive. Eventually, the gates give in. The attackers flood the streets, and it's pure, unfiltered chaos. People are stabbing, screaming, and dying everywhere you look. Civilians? They're fucked. Some try to run, others get dragged off to be slaves. By the time the battle's over, Uruk is drenched in blood. Bodies are piled up in the streets, and the survivors are left wondering how the hell they're going to rebuild. Because they always have to rebuild. And that's the thing about Uruk. No matter how many times it got torn to shit, it always came back stronger. That's civilization for you. Brutal as fuck, but relentless. Here's the crazy part. For all the blood and misery, Uruk was a goddamn powerhouse of innovation. Writing. Yeah, that started here. The first writing system, cuneiform, was invented in Uruk. At first, it was just for track and trade, barley, livestock, beer. But soon, it became the foundation for laws, stories, and even prayers. And that's not even half of it. Uruk also had one of the first organized economies. They traded goods in markets that were probably loud as shit and smelled even worse. They used silver and barley as currency. Hell, there were even contracts and loans. So, yeah, your student debt? That's just an updated version of paying your ass off in bushels of grain. And the architecture? Fucking insane. Those ziggurats weren't just temples, they were giant fuck yous to anyone who doubted the city's power. They were built with mud bricks and sheer human will, and they towered over everything. Uruk wasn't just the first city. It was a prototype for every city that came after. Think about modern cities, the markets, the skyscrapers, the fucking grind. It all started here, in this bloody, brutal experiment. But progress has always came at a price. In Uruk, that price was blood. Literal fucking blood. Today, it's exploitation, environmental destruction, and inequality. Different tools, same damn game. Take sweatshops, for example. They're the modern version of those laborers in Uruk hauling bricks until their bodies gave out. And the constant surveillance we deal with now, that's just a high-tech version of kings watching your every fucking move. So, what do we do with that? Do we just accept that progress is always going to fuck someone over? Or do we finally say, enough is enough, and try to build something better?
Here are a few laws or societal norms that could have been in place in Uruk. Sacrificial obligations to the gods. Citizens are required to provide offerings, grain, livestock, or other valuables during religious ceremonies to honor the gods and maintain their favor. Labor and tribute for public works. Every household must send one able-bodied worker when summoned to contribute to the construction and maintenance of public projects, such as city walls or ziggurats. Property and trade regulation. No one may take another person's barley, silver, or goods without fair exchange. All trades are overseen by temple scribes to ensure disputes are avoided. Marital and family norms. If a wife dies without children, her dowry must be returned to her family. Marriage and inheritance are to follow local customs. Punishment for theft. Anyone caught stealing must repay double the amount taken and face public punishment, such as branding, to discourage further crimes. Religious authority. Citizens are forbidden from withholding tributes to the temple or defying the priest's authority. Violators may face exile or punishment under divine decree. Water and irrigation rights. If someone unlawfully diverts water from their neighbor's canal, they must forfeit their share of the harvest and repair any damage caused to the irrigation system.
The laws of Uruk, while not fully documented, were likely the foundation of order in humanity's first city. They governed sacrifices to the gods, labor for public works, fair trade, family roles, and water rights, ensuring survival in a harsh world. Theft was met with harsh penalties, and priests held immense authority over daily life. These early principles, rooted in necessity and power, shaped the first systems of governance. While we can only speculate based on ancient records, these laws reflect the struggles and innovations of a society learning to live together. Before we wrap up, I wanted to leave you with a few thoughts to carry into your week. Imagine Uruk, the first city in history, with all its grit, blood, and laws. Now think about the challenges we still face today. From the struggle over resources to the demands of power. Are we really that different from those ancient builders and priests? If you're feeling curious, you can join the conversation. Head over to our Instagram, @Time Machine Diaries, and let me know. What do you think Uruk's legacy teaches us about the world today? Do you think modern day people like me and you could survive in a city like that? And if you want an even deeper dive or exclusive content, we're getting that put together over on Patreon at THO420. Remember, your feedback means the world to me. I mean, dead ass serious. So leave a review on Spotify. Tell me I suck. Tell me I'm great. Tell me I'm getting better. I don't care. Just drop a comment. Every little bit helps us bring you more stories from the past. Next week, we're diving into another chapter in history. And trust me, it's going to get even darker. You won't want to miss it. Thank you for joining me on this bloody journey to Uruk. If you enjoyed today's episode, hit that follow button and share with someone who's ready for the real, messy history of our world. And remember, history is brutal, bloody, and messy as hell. But it's ours. Let's learn from it. And maybe, just maybe, do better. See you next time.